You don't ask for help easily, even when you're overwhelmed, even when you're exhausted, even when a part of you quietly wishes someone would notice. You learned how to handle things on your own. You solve your own problems. You carry your own weight. And when something hurts, you process it privately. People often describe you as strong, independent, low maintenance, but they don't see the part of you that stopped expecting comfort a long time ago. Growing up, your emotions didn't always have a place to land. Maybe no one asked how you felt. Maybe your tears were inconvenient. Maybe your achievements were acknowledged, but your inner world was overlooked. So you adapted. Society tends to praise self-reliance. It calls it maturity. It calls it resilience. And when you don't need much from others, you're seen as easy to deal with. But sometimes that independence isn't just strength. Sometimes it's survival. From the outside, it can look like you prefer being alone, like you don't get attached, like you're emotionally distant or overly private. But that's not the full story. Psychology suggests that when a child's emotions are consistently ignored, minimized, or dismissed, the child doesn't stop feeling, they stop expressing, they stop expecting. Your nervous system learned something very specific. It learned that vulnerability does not guarantee safety. It learned that expressing needs may lead to disappointment. So it adjusted. Research shows that children are incredibly adaptive. If emotional support isn't reliably available, they develop internal coping systems. They become hyper-competent. They become self-soothing. They become the problem solver in the room, not because they wanted to grow up early, but because no one else was coming. Over time, this creates a kind of dangerous self-reliance. Dangerous not because it's dramatic, but because it becomes automatic. You don't even think to reach out anymore. When something goes wrong, your first instinct isn't, "Who can help me?" It's, "How do I fix this quietly?" When you're hurt in a relationship, you withdraw instead of demanding reassurance. When you're stressed at work, you push through instead of admitting you're overwhelmed. When life feels heavy, you tell yourself to handle it. And you usually do. That's the part that confuses people. You're capable, you're composed, you function well. So no one assumes there's anything missing. But here's the deeper truth. This trait didn't form because you were cold. It formed because you were perceptive. As a child, you likely sensed that your emotional needs were inconvenient, too much, or simply invisible. So you reduced them, you streamlined them, you told yourself you didn't need as much. That takes intelligence. It takes awareness. You learned to read the room. You learned when to stay quiet. You learned how to regulate yourself without external comfort. Those are not weaknesses, they are advanced adaptations. The problem is not that you became self-reliant. The problem is that you became exclusively self-reliant. There's a difference. Healthy independence allows connection. Defensive independence avoids it. You might notice this pattern in small ways. When a friend offers help, you instinctively decline. When a partner asks what you need, you struggle to answer. When someone gets close, you subtly brace yourself. Not because you don't care, but because somewhere deep inside you learned that relying on others carries risk. In relationships, this can look like being the stable one, the listener, the supporter. You hold space for everyone else. But when it's your turn to be held, you minimize your own feelings. At work, you might be the person who never complains, the one who takes on extra responsibility, the one who handles pressure without visible cracks. People admire you. They don't always understand you. And in quiet moments, you might feel a strange mix of pride and loneliness. Pride in your competence, loneliness in how rarely someone truly sees the effort behind it. Here's the insight that changes everything. Your self-reliance is not proof that you don't need connection. It's proof that you learned to survive without it. There's a difference between not needing anyone and not expecting anyone. Psychology often talks about attachment patterns, but at its core, this isn't about labels, it's about memory. Your body remembers what it felt like to reach out and not be met. So now you move through the world with a quiet understanding. If I don't depend on anyone, I can't be disappointed. That logic once protected you. It kept you stable. It kept you focused. It kept you from chasing validation that wasn't there. But as an adult, the same shield can become a wall. The realization isn't that you need to become dependent. It's that strength and support can coexist. You can be capable and still allow someone to show up for you. You can be composed and still admit when something hurts. You can be independent without isolating yourself. Nothing about your wiring is broken. In fact, it's incredibly refined. You're likely observant, emotionally controlled, thoughtful with your words. You probably think deeply before you trust. You don't attach lightly. When you commit, you mean it. That's not weakness, that's discernment. The world often moves loudly and carelessly. You move carefully, intentionally. If you've ever felt different because of that, understand this. You developed depth early. You learned how to sit with yourself. Many people can't do that. The goal isn't to erase your self-reliance. It's to soften its edges, to slowly teach your nervous system that connection doesn't always equal danger. To experiment with small acts of openness, letting someone help with something minor, saying, "I'm tired," instead of pretending you're fine. Allowing someone to see a crack without rushing to repair it. Not all at once, just enough to remind yourself that you're no longer that child navigating alone. There's nothing behind you to catch up to. There's no emotional milestone you missed. You adapted exactly the way you needed to. And now you get to choose what stays. If this way of thinking feels familiar, you're not strange. You're perceptive. You're layered. You're someone who learns strength quietly. Trust that your independence doesn't have to isolate you. It can become something steadier, something balanced. And if you value conversations that explore the deeper patterns most people overlook, stay connected here. There's more to uncover about the quiet intelligence you've been carrying all along.